All right, Los Angeles Rams, best case, worst case. What do you got?
So my best case scenario for the Rams is the offense just hits a completely different level and they make it back to the Super Bowl. Worst case scenario is the secondary questions leaves the defense stagnant. And I think for the offense, the best case scenario, this feels like it could be like your favorite offense's favorite offense could be the Rams, just in the way that they are able to win in so many different levels. I think the Rams offense last year was really good, but something that I noticed was they weren't that great against man coverage. I think they were 26 in the NFL, according to Sports Info Solutions, in yards per route run in the receiving corps against man coverage. They were 6 against zone. So the answer is you go and add Devontae Adams, who is quite possibly the best separator or still one of the best separators against man coverage in the NFL. I understand the age, but he showed last season he can still create separation. And now the offense just has they have more answers to the questions that you're going to ask them. I think some of the explosiveness questions are still going to be there. I'm actually a big fan of Kanata Mumpfield, who they took in 7th round of the draft. I think he can be a really good explosive option for them, but the offense being explosive, they can get to the Super Bowl with that offense. But worst case scenario is just, like I said, if you can win with 4 that answers a lot of questions, I don't know if the secondary can hold up long enough, if both health-wise and you're still kind of cobbling together this secondary. You spent all of the high picks that you have on the front, which is fine, which obviously worked, but the secondary still has a lot of questions left to be answered. I'm worried about a little bit about the lack of speed in the secondary. So you just wonder if the secondary questions kind of drag this defense down.
Yeah, best case scenario, Devontae Adams looks like Devontae Adams, and Matt Stafford still got it. And the 4 horsemen of the front 4 apocalypse show up and, give nightmares every single Sunday. And I'd hate to play that group. And I like what you said about they score any type of way offensively. It's true. But the question mark on the back end of that defense is a big one. And, I like the front 4, and you look around the league, what do the best defenses do? They win with 4 guys. We've said it a number of times today. Well, you can only win with 4 guys if you can cover on the back end. And even though you can allocate all those extra resources to the back end, you still need good guys to do it. That's the worst case scenario. That's the thing that hamstrings this unit.
Yeah, their secondary is pretty obviously the worst case scenario. It's just that not only are they not particularly talented, and it blew my mind that they left the draft without a single pick being added to the secondary, but they're also old. You're starting corners at 32 and 30 years old, and they do a great job protecting them, right? But it's like, damn, that's what you're banking on to put the chips down, go up against Devontae Smith and A.J. Brown in the playoffs, that Ahkello Witherspoon and Darius Williams. That's what we're going with coming into this season. And then also offensively, just age as well. Matt Stafford's 37. Devontae Adams is 32. We talked about over 30 wide receivers in that. Like, he's best case scenario, but it just, with every given year, it goes down a little bit. I know how I felt at 32, and is nowhere near how close I felt at 28. So it happens. It's unfortunate. Father Time beats us all. So Rams, though, I am excited to see this offense. I obviously, when it's a Sean McVay coach offense, which is all the talent they have there, it could be special. Let's get to Seattle Seahawks. Best and worst case scenarios.
So my best case scenario is the defense is the top 3 unit in the NFL. The offense just does enough. And then the worst case scenario is the offensive line can't hold up. And by can't hold up, I mean both isn't healthy, but also cannot hold up in pass protection. When you look at what Sam Darnold did under pressure versus not under pressure, the numbers are pretty staggering. And if this offensive line and all the acquisitions that they have, I mean, when they're healthy, Charles Cross is awesome. When he's healthy, Abe Lucas is really fun. You've added to the offensive line, but if your bookend left tackle isn't healthy, if Abe Lucas isn't healthy, if you just don't get good offensive line play, this entire thing falls apart. And I think it's also similar for Clint Kubiak, new offensive coordinator, because with the Saints, it all looked great until the offensive line got hurt, and then everything just kind of fell apart. But best case scenario, this defense absolutely freaking rules. Like, I think from top to bottom, they're incredibly talented. You kind of saw the Mike McDonald, like, I think their defense sort of resembled I think it was 2022 Ravens, Mike McDonald's first year as coordinator for the Ravens, where they start off really slow. They finished top 6 in the NFL in defensive EPA per play. And I think that's what the Seahawks did last year. And of course, we saw what they did in 2023. So if they can get to a top 3 unit in the NFL and the offense just doesn't completely implode, maybe this is a sneaky competitive team.
You talked about Kubiak and the offensive line that they have in Seattle. A lot of what Kubiak's success is predicated upon is running the football. And if you can't run the football effectively, with or without your starters, you are going to be in for a long game as a quarterback. And couple that with Sam Darnold's experiences in a bad way with pressure or lack of protection, it doesn't spell success for me. I wrote best case scenario in quotes, Sam Darnold, wow, I was wrong. Me week 8 if they're not absolutely worst case scenario, also quotes, why did we make all those moves? That's me at a fish market in Seattle. It just hasn't felt right from the very beginning. Ridding yourself of a true number 1 receiver, getting rid of Geno Smith, who we can all agree can still sling this thing. There's less question marks about Geno Smith than there are Sam Darnold. Stop me when I'm wrong. So for Seattle fans, there's a lot of weird going on this year, but the defense will be the thing that keeps people coming back. It's been the thing that's kept Seattle afloat for a long time.
Yeah, I don't think, even the most diehard, optimistic Seahawks fan has to be told what the worst case scenario is. We've seen Sam Darnold's career. There's worst case scenario littered all over it, unfortunately, for Seahawks fans. And you tied your boat to this, hit your wagon to this. I don't know, I'll mix the metaphors there. But the best case scenario,
they got boats in Seattle.
They got a lot. Is you're gonna feel like turn back the clock 10 years. This feels like a Pete Carroll circa 2015 sort of team and what they could be, in that it's going to be run, it's going to be D. They are not going to mess around with the passing game. I don't think too much. You don't have to when you have what they have in the backfield. So they are going to be that sort of team. They're going to grind out as many tough wins as possible. And you just hope that this defense looks like Legion of Boom defense that can do that, and not just a very good defense who's going to, have some weaknesses, have some holes that can be exploited at certain points in time. And you kind of just end up in the same scenario you were last year. Arizona Cardinals, one of the most interesting teams in the NFL this year, in my opinion, given just the changes. Just this defensive line. We'll obviously get to it here in a little bit, but what's the best and worst case scenario?
The best case scenario for me is making the playoffs behind a top 12-ish unit on both sides. And then worst case scenario is the Kyler Murray and Marvin Harrison Jr. connection just can't get going. I am a football nerd when it comes to, for a best case scenario, I'm a football nerd to the point where for grad school, I wrote my master's thesis on the 3 safety defense and if it could work in the NFL. Then Nick Rollis and Jonathan Gannon run it with the Cardinals. And I'm like, oh, that's exactly what I was thinking. So I think their defense is super fun. I've called it a pocket sand defense before because you just don't know what they're going to throw at you. I think the way that they play Budda Baker is kind of that middle safety is really fun and really effective. But their biggest issue last year was they were just small. And now you've addressed that with the defense and with the defensive line acquisitions. And I think that defense can be really good. They finished the season really well. I think they were top 10 in EPA per play last season over the back half of the season. So if you can get that defense playing really well, if you can get the connection between Kyler Murray and Marvin Harrison Jr. going, you can look at this team and be like, oh, this is a top 12-ish offense, top 12-ish defense that could lead you to the playoffs. But worst case scenario, if you can't get it going with Marvin Harrison Jr., that's asked a lot of questions about Kyler Murray. And I think watching them play last year, it felt like 2 guys from 2 separate bands who were really good in their respective bands. When they come together for like a little tour, it seems fine, but it just doesn't connect the same way. It doesn't hit the same. And you could tell that they were still trying to figure out what each other likes on the fade routes, on some of those backside of the 3x1s. If you got it, just throw it. And that's sort of where Marvin Harrison Jr. existed last year, where a lot of the complaint was you weren't incorporating him into the offense, where he's kind of the sacrificial X, where you kind of just let him run downfield. If they got a one-on-one, just throw it. But if they can't get that connection going, I think it's the worst case scenario because Kyler Murray might not be in Arizona for much longer.
Best case scenario, all the talent that they've drafted works out well and they all become great players, particularly on the defensive side of the ball. The big question mark, the worst case scenario, is obviously Marvin Harrison Jr. And if he can become a real focal point of this offense and somebody you can rely on from, first snap to final whistle. Because look, this is a team that nobody wants to play. This is a quarterback that no defensive coordinator wants to prepare for, no rusher wants to prepare for. And it's a defense, to your point about their unique scheme. And some of the guys that are lurking in that scheme that makes it tough to prepare for offensively as well. So I think the X factor obviously is Marvin Harrison Jr. as well.
Yeah, I think the best case scenario is obvious. You have to know that they're like, I can't remember a team that had a bigger difference in terms of their defensive line from week one of a season prior to week one now. They've added Calais Campbell, Dalvin Tomlinson, Baron Browning, Darius Robinson, BJ Ojolari, Josh Sweat, Walter Nolan, and Jordan Birch over that time span. And now some of those guys are on the roster, just hurt, whatever, but like just a night and day difference in terms of what Jonathan Gannon's going to be able to do. And if you got, who you think's one of the best DCs in the NFL, I would echo that. That could get you one of the best defenses in the NFL. But the worst case scenario is it's the up and down nature. It's not just that like the connection doesn't work. It's just that 1 week it does, 1 week it doesn't. Because last year, I couldn't believe when I looked this offseason, and they were a top 10 offense in terms of EPA per play last year. But they had 5 games where they scored 14 or fewer points. It's 6 games where there's 7 games where they had 17 or fewer points, or 18 or fewer points. Excuse me. Like they had games where they just stunk. And then they had games where they went off. You look at the team above them, the Chiefs, they're the 9th ranked team. They had 1 game where they scored 14 or fewer points. The 49ers behind them had only 3 games. So for them to go in the tank as much as they did, which has kind of been a little bit of a criticism of Kyler Murray over the course of his career, if that can't turn around, how do you make it through 4 playoff games to win a Super Bowl? If one of them's going to be a dud, which is, the number suggested that just like on average, that's going to be the case. So if that doesn't turn around, you are, like you said, you might be going forward with other plans at the quarterback position, or might have to be assessing other plans at the quarterback position other than Kyler Murray. All right, last team here in the West, 49ers. What we got?
Best case scenario is positive regression. It's straight like you just get positive regression on both sides of all. But the worst case scenario is just too much inexperience at critical positions. I think with this team, there's the questions at receiver. There's questions with all the acquisitions on defense if they can get those young guys playing well early. Malik Mustafa is going to be out for the season with an ACL injury. You're starting new young guys on defense in the secondary. The offense still kind of like you just need that positive injury regression back. And I think that's the biggest thing because when they were healthy, it still looked really good. The Niners offense still was a good unit. It's just nobody was ever healthy at the same time. So if you can just get some positive regression, I mean, nothing about this offense is like drastically different. I think you trade Deebo Samuel away, but I think that they were preparing for the inevitability of one of those 2 receivers being gone by drafting Ricky Pearsall. And the defense, I think at bringing back Robert Saleh and then immediately going, all right, we were terrible against the run. Let's go add CJ West, Alfred Collins, and Michael Williams and just never do that again. I think those could lead to another season where the Niners are really good. They have a last place schedule in the NFC West. They could win the division off that schedule and positive regression, but it's just getting everybody healthy and getting that youth up to speed.
Best case scenario, this team stays healthy, particularly the skill players on offense, and they become a team that we see playing meaningful football at the end of the year. And that guy right there is the centerpiece of all of it. When you pull that Lego piece out, you can't make, there's like 7 or 8 pages in your playbook that you can't build. So if we can get through to Kyle Shanahan and have him understand that the volume is not as important as, week in, week out availability, that'll be great because this Niners team, to your point, Saleh coming back in the building, that's an immediate shot in the arm to the run game, to the toughness, to the culture of that defensive side of the ball. You've still got stars over there. Offensive side of the ball, same thing. And I'm glad you talked about even when guys were injured, this offense didn't go down in the dumps. Kyle Shanahan's brilliant. He's been doing it a long time. And I think there's a handful of guys that are underappreciated. I'd say Shanahan's on that short list, and I put LaFleur in there too.
Yeah, I'll just add one more thing in terms of worst case scenario, because the best case scenario is like obvious. They still have all these stars. They still can be the team we've seen in the past. But has John Lynch looked at this offensive line? I mean, you're relying on a Trent Williams at left tackle who's about to turn 37, who, yeah, he had a stretch there in San Francisco where he was healthy, but over the course of his career has not been a pinnacle of health. And again, 37. It just, we've seen Andrew Whitworth do it. We've seen other guys do it. Not everyone's capable of doing it. And we already saw him get hurt last year. Because after him, Ben Barch at left guard, Jake Brendel at center, Colton McKivitz at right tackle. I mean, McKivitz has always been kind of the weak link there, but now you have other weaker links. Dominic Puni, we love at right guard. No complaints there, but it is thin up front for a team that's trying to be a contender in a conference where D-lines are kind of, there's some damn good D-lines that you're going to have to face. I just think that has the potential to sink your season at some point in time. If Trent Williams goes down, you're truly toast. You truly are not going to be able to win a lot of games if he's not on the football field.